And as you can see, we have quite a large crowd today, and I'm very excited to say that we have a group of students from Blanchette Elementary. These fourth and fifth graders are members of the National Elementary Honor Society and Student Council. That may be mine. Did you already get yours? Okay. Yeah. No, it's yours. Sorry about that. And I introduced them early because we're going to have an opportunity to get a picture with y'all here in just a few minutes. But with that, we're going to have Minister Cheryl Williams come up. She's chaplain with Department of Texas Adjunct District 2, Post 817, the American Legion. And then I'm going to ask that everyone please silence their phones, and if you so choose, please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, because after the prayer, we're going to have Carly Manuel, who's a student council president at Blanchette Elementary, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good afternoon, Council. Let's pray together. Great and gracious God, we come this afternoon to simply say thank you. We thank you for life and health and strength, protection and provision. We thank you for your death, burial, and resurrection that has given us life and life more abundantly. Father, we come this afternoon to invite you and to involve you in this city business. We invite you into our city square, our halls of justice, our economic endeavors, our family relations, and our academic success. Grant that our city would be known as a righteous city, a city that confesses Jesus as Lord, a city of peace and hope, a city with happy homes, a city set on a hill that welcomes the stranger and cares for the needy and defends the innocent from evildoers. We thank you for these council members, these city managers, city attorney, city clerk, city tax assessor, and all the staff. Be with our judges, our attorneys, and our law enforcement and fire protection staff. Grant that they would never neglect or abuse their authority, but that they would stand firm for truth and for justice and keep them safe as they keep our city streets safe. Lord, I decree now that you are the hope of this city. I declare and decree political resourcefulness and righteousness. I decree love, forgiveness, and joy to all the citizens of Beaumont, Texas. And I pray for this council meeting today, that you will give the council members wisdom and guidance as they deliberate on items that are before them. And may every decision be a righteous one in your sight, for our benefit, but for your glory. It's in your name that we pray. And together we all said, amen.
Carly?
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart and join me for United States Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor West.
Present.
Pro Tem Turner, absent. Councilmember Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Samuel. And Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, today we have one proclamation and one presentation. At this time, though, I would like to recognize the students from Blanchette Elementary, and if they would please come up, shake hands with the council, and we'd like to take a picture. And so you can start over on this side and go around.
All righty. Maybe I can get a few of the students who are right here to touch. Just a little bit more, a little bit more.
Wait.
You can stand over here with me. All righty, y'all. Look right here. And 1, 2, and 3. Let's get one more. 1, 2, and 3. Perfect, perfect.
Now we have a proclamation recognizing March 21st through the 31st, 2024 as the South Texas State Fair Days.
Whereas history shows the first event was simply called the Beaumont Fair. Families came with picnic lunches, some even camped overnight on the grounds. Later, the fair became known as the Southeast Texas State Fair, but in 1921, the East was dropped and the present name adopted. And whereas the YMBL is hosting its annual Harold Engstrom Memorial Special Kids Day at the rodeo on Wednesday, March 20th. This event first started 33 years ago, and the YMBL Rodeo Committee members expect to have approximately 1,700 youngsters from 25 school districts representing some 100 schools attending the Kids Day Rodeo, along with some 200 volunteers from the YMBL and from other community organizations. Whereas the Southeast Texas State Fair invites you to come and enjoy the fun-filled Carnival Midway, live entertainment, the YMBL Rodeo, incredible and delicious fair food, relax at one of the many relaxation stations, and don't leave until you have visited the famous exhibit hall featuring over 100 upscale quality vendors selling collectibles, home improvement items, and much, much more. Whereas the Young Men's Business League of Beaumont is committed and has benefited the community for over 100 years by investing in programs and projects that assist a broad range of the area's citizens from the youth to the elderly. Now, therefore, Roy West, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, acknowledged the 2024 Southeast Texas State Fair and will take place with opening day on Thursday, March 21st and ending on Sunday, March 31st, 2024, and hereby do proclaim these days as the YMBL South Texas State Fair Days in Beaumont and encourage all citizens of Beaumont to go out and have fun, making memories with your family at the YMBL Southeast Texas State Fair. Accordingly, the mayor is herein to set his hand, cause the seal of the city of Beaumont to be affixed on this day, March 19th, 2024.
And we have accepting Mr. Greg Wall, the 2024 Fair Chairman, but you're all welcome to, everybody with you here that came is welcome to come up as well, please. So you just don't sleep for the next couple of weeks.
I'm around the clock.
Welcome, guys.
Good to see you.
Welcome. Appreciate you guys, what you're doing. Thank you guys for what you're doing. Sure. It's good to have you in Beaumont. Yeah. Bless you. How you doing? Appreciate you guys, what you're doing.
You're going to come right back over here for a picture. All right, let's try to center up just a little bit. I got a lot more people on this side than on this side. Perfect, perfect. Here, you can scoot in just a little closer. All righty, y'all, look right here. 1, 2, and 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. All right, y'all can come back.
2 days. We've been working for over a year to get ready for what's going to start in 2 days. And I'm looking out at the sky, and I got a call into Bostwick, and we're going to make sure he knows what his responsibilities are for the next 11 days. So my name is Greg Wall. I'm this year's fair chairman. We have a representation of the fair committee here, the fair divisions, a lot of these gentlemen, and this is all volunteer. The YMBL guys put on, and we work year around for this. A lot of these gentlemen will take vacation, so they have plenty of time to dedicate to the fair. And as my responsibility as the fair chairman, my burden is easy because we've got a lot of experience and skill sets in all four of our fair divisions that put everything on. So this year we're going to have Gator Country is coming back. We've invited Beaumont community players to come put on a couple of free performances in the E Hall. We have a few new rides and a lot of great food. So hopefully we'll see a lot of these kids out in the next few days, and we hope to see all the council out as well. We do have, in addition to the committee men, we have our YMBL president Gerard Celestine is here tonight, and we have the lovely ladies, and the cowgirls are for the Texas Rodeo Queens. So they're going to be out there during the Kids Day Rodeo that we mentioned. Heralding the Kids Day Rodeo is what the slack rodeo performance is. When we have the rodeo performances, not all the cowboys and cowgirls, we only have a certain amount of time. So there's slack, there's performances that go on when the public's not there. And a long time ago, we performed these in front of an empty arena. Judge Harold Engstrom decided that let's get some of the special need communities so the kids will come out there. We give them a free lunch, and they get to watch the rodeo, visit with the cowgirls and some of the cowboys, and it's a great time for them. The fair, like I said, it starts Thursday. Gates open at 5, I believe, or 6. I should know that, but I can't. I've tried to keep everything in my mind, but we're looking forward to a great time. And we have the rodeo is 3 days, and then we have a bull ride for 2 days. So we've extended that, and so we'll see these ladies out there every night, and we're looking for a bigger and better fair and a bigger and better rodeo. And so with that, Gerard, would you like to come up and address the council?
Thank you so much. Yeah, first of all, I just want to appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedule to acknowledge our partnership that we've had for so many years. And with the proclamation, it is truly an honor. We don't take that lightly. This is a volunteer organization, as may have been said. We have a lot of members who do that. And, they do that because there's a reason outside of the fair. And we recognize that it's bigger than just the event of the fair, being able to give back to the community in various ways. And so we've been able to do that. We've done that with the partnership, not only with the Beaumont itself, but also with the school districts in the area. But it's all thanks to the efforts that you guys do and the community does for us. So we're most graceful for that, and we'll continue to do what we do. As long as you guys are there to support us in our efforts, then we'll do it together. So with that, I appreciate you guys for all of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on Wednesday, March 20th, which is tomorrow, we'll be doing a proclamation at the community pep rally celebrating Beaumont United basketball team, who's had 4 back-to-back appearances to the state finals and semifinals. The community pep rally will be held at Beaumont United, located at 3443 Finette Road, beginning at 6 p.m., and all are invited. And I would also like to congratulate Lamar University's women basketball team on winning the Southland Conference regular season championship and winning 13 games in a row. They are now playing in the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament. They're set to play Washington State at 9 p.m. on Thursday, March 21st. Let's go Cards. So everybody watch them and follow them and encourage them on social media. Next, we're going to have a presentation of the fiscal year 2023 annual comprehensive financial report by Patillo, Brown, and Hill, LLP.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Pruitt. I'm an audit partner for Patillo, Brown and Hill, and we have completed our audit over the city's financial statements for the year ended September 30th, 2023. First of all, the audit itself, it's been about a 2.5-month process by which we've worked with the finance department, other departments within the city. The end result is this 147-page document of your annual comprehensive financial report. In addition to this report, you should have 2 other documents with you. And I'd like to say a few things about each one briefly, and answer any questions that you might have over either document. In regards to the financial statements, I would draw your attention to Roman numeral page 9. It does look like this. This is a copy of an award given out by the Government Finance Officers Association for achievement in excellence in financial reporting. This is an award given out for last year's report. This is an award given out that the city has received for about 37 years. My expectation is that this year's report will receive the award again. Those are usually given out in September or October. And what that is an indication that the city is going above and beyond what is required in their financial reporting. There are a bunch of things that need to be in the report that aren't in a normal report, and the city is doing those things. Also, you will find our opinion letter. You receive what we call a unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. What that means is that the financial statements are free of material misstatement and that they can be relied upon by a third party. It's the highest opinion that we can give. The financial statements are the responsibility of the city, and as your auditor, it's my responsibility to express an opinion. Okay, the small report is your single audit. The city receives more than $750,000 of federal funding, so you're required to have what we call a single audit. It's a process by which we go in and identify your large or high-risk grant programs, and then we do additional test work above and beyond what is normally required. So we're looking to make sure that you're in compliance with those grants. I'm happy to say that you received a clean opinion on that as well. No findings, and to our satisfaction, you're in compliance with those grants. There's another letter stating that we looked at the city's internal control processes and compliance with various laws, grants, and regulations, and that's a clean opinion as well. So what that means is, the things that you normally think of as an audit, we're looking at your controls over cash, controls over your capital assets, things of that nature. Clean opinion. These reports were gone over in an audit committee earlier this morning in greater detail. I'd like to field any questions that you might have over the process or any of the 3 documents. Oh, the third document is a letter to those charged with governance, which is yourselves. Just a few things I have to tell you in relation to the audit, and I've just chosen to put it in a written format instead of verbally going over all of them. It's a pretty standard letter. You should see it every year.
We're going to open it up for any questions, but just be advised too that we will have access. The audit committee got to spend some time reviewing this earlier, but if you have any questions after reviewing it, you can certainly still ask the questions if you don't ask them right now. Councilman Felshaw, did you?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. You've given us a good report, and I appreciate all that you've done for the city, and I commend our staff for their hard work in keeping our rating high. Just curious, not having an opportunity, of course, to look at this. You've given us the honey, but can you give us the medicine? Is there any place where you would say to us as a council, you should improve here and you should focus on that?
Nothing came to our attention that we feel, again, because of misstatement, there's always room for improvement. Most entities, capital assets and inventories of that nature, nothing came up that we feel would be a problem, but that is something that's kind of a canned response that we give to a lot of our governments, because a lot of times those assets are neglected because the focus is always on the budget. So a lot of times the fixed assets get neglected. This year, I know there was a change at the top, and it's an opportunity to kind of catch your breath and get everything organized and go forward. So I will say this was the first year that the firm conducted the audit. We were very impressed with the city's personnel. The audit went very smoothly, especially considering, again, it's the first year. First year of an audit is always the most difficult one because we don't know you, you don't know us. We're learning all of your processes, but I feel things went very well. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
any other questions, comments?
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to, I guess, express our appreciation to Cheryl Ray, and I think she wanted to say a few things to express her appreciation for her staff.
Yes.
Yes, this being a year of change, it was very difficult for me to be as involved with the audit as I would have liked to have been. I did, of course, oversee everything, but I wanted to thank my staff. If y'all would stand up, please. I couldn't have done it without them, especially this year. They did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you to your staff, and thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
For those that are here for proclamations or presentations, now would be, if you'd like to leave, now's the time to do so. But for those that would like to stay, you're welcome to stay, and thank you for coming. Thank you, Blanchette Elementary. 4th and 5th graders, National Honor Society.
So your daddy, I said, what's up, all right? Real age.
Yeah.
It was on his mind.
Yeah.
I'm the real agent.
All right, now is the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make public comments on the consent agenda, the regular agenda items 1 through 7 or 11, or on any other topic. Items 8 through 10 have already been heard in public hearing. Therefore, citizens cannot speak on those items. The city clerk will call your name when it's your time to speak. When you approach the podium, please say your address, city, and state. You will have 3 minutes for the public comments. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. And please be reminded that nobody on city council, including myself, can respond whenever you're making comments, but someone from our office will follow up with you.
Lauren Moniz. I know, I can't do it.
Good afternoon. We're excited to be back with the announcements for the week of March 19th. The Rec Department is hosting a co-ed youth 3-on-3 basketball tournament April 5th and 6th for ages 8 through 15. Registration ends March 22nd, and you can sign up in person at the Sterling Pruitt Athletic Center. Please join us this Saturday, March 23rd, for the city's annual free Easter egg hunt at Magnolia Park at 11 a.m. No need to sign up, just show up with your basket and come to have fun. The city's biannual surplus auction is still open a few more days. Anyone can browse and bid until March 27th by searching City of Beaumont at reneebates.com. The municipal court is holding their first ever warrant amnesty program, where warrant fees for any Class C misdemeanors will be waived today through April 2nd for anyone who takes action on an active ticket. On April 3rd, Beaumont Police and Beaumont Municipal Court will be holding a warrant roundup for anyone with outstanding violations. For more information or to pay online, visit beaumonttexas.gov/active-warrants. The Beaumont Public Libraries and 12 News Now will be hosting an eclipse watch party at the Event Center on Monday, April 8th from 12 to 3:30 p.m. Learn more about this rare phenomenon with hands-on meteorology activities and free family-friendly entertainment. And students, are you looking to make some money and have some fun this summer? The city's seasonal summer jobs have been posted, and there are a variety of opportunities around the community from rec to animal care. You can find all the details and apply online at governmentjobs.com/careers/Beaumont. And a friendly reminder, the city will be closed March 29th for Good Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Petrie, 3705 East Lucas Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
I would like to say thank you, councilors, for the donations for the backpack giveaway. We ended up giving away 1,300. We doubled what we did the year before. And also thank y'all for removing that bus bench. It's clean, no scenery, quiet. And now I'm here for the hit and runs and the death in front of the building on 3705 East Lucas Drive and Pinebird. They have a crosswalk. You press a button and the light stays yellow. When you press the button, it turns red, but people do not stop at all. They jump Hill Big Railroad track on a Lucas 70, 80 miles an hour. They came out, they trimmed the trees, they took the 4 lights down and put new 4 lights, but it's still no red light. I guess they're not through yet. But I put this petition, we are putting a petition together for the crossing walk in front of the crossing apartments, considering recent events that occurred. We had too many people injured or killed at this crosswalk. We as a community would like a safer crosswalk installed, trees trimmed, and more people present, police present. We have children and adults that walk the sidewalks the line East Lucas Drive. They are scared not only for their safety, but now their lives. Most of the people that reside here at the crossing do not have cars, so their only way to shop is to walk. People use East Lucas Drive as a drag race and jump the tracks with no care for anyone's safety. Please help us to make our neighborhood a safer place to live. I have just over 80 signatures, but I was wondering if they do install a real red light, is it possible they can put cameras on both sides? Or if they do put a red light, is it any way they can put something on each side that'll make them stop? Because they does not stop. They was built in 2012. Since 1014, we had over 7 deaths, more hit and runs over that. And this, the last one was March the 2nd. A lady got killed, 62 years old. So if y'all can, just help us out. Thank y'all for everything, though.
Thank you.
I left copies for all y'all.
Thank you. Charlie Crabb, 928 East Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Charlie Crabb, 928 East Drive, Beaumont, Texas. Let's see. It's nice to be down to meet with the city council again. Our town, thanks for taking care of it. And I want to say hello to the council and the manager and the other staff members. And my report today is on 555 Main. I guess you know it's being demolished, and it's a very nice building. And if you like big equipment, take a look. There's a large excavator with a long arm and a crab claw on the end of it. The operator makes a quick work of each office and floor. The claw tears down the walls and then bites the girders and tears them from the bolted support beams. The debris falls to the ground. The debris is cleared by support excavators that to separate the metal from the building material. The aluminum is separated from the iron and steel. The iron and steel are packed into a very large container, 18-wheeler. I imagine it is taken to the steel mill across the river. We, no human hands are needed to handle all the debris. Just skilled operators, quite a safe, difficult operation. I imagine it is worth the $1 million that it cost to tear down the building. And anyway, I've watched it with interest. And another thing I'd like to mention is the crosswalk on Lucas. I've been through there myself, and since the yellow light blinks all the time, people do tend to ignore it. So there needs to be a little study made to improve that safety there. And everybody have a good day, and nice to be in Beaumont. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crabb.
William Johnson, 1045 Madison Avenue, Beaumont, Texas.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council. William Johnson, 1045 Madison Avenue, Beaumont, Texas. My complaint is my bank. I've been dealing with my bank for the past 3 or 4 years. And all of a sudden, on the 2nd and the 8th of 2024, I goes to my bank and my checking account is dry. $1,500 been taken out of my checking account. I talked to the bank president about it, and she wouldn't go no further than say, you got to go to the police. I mean, like she gave me the withdrawal slips, how much people took out of my account. I'm asking her, how did this happen? She let me know that she won't have nothing else to do with it. You got to go to the police for any more information. I just wanted to see me on film going in the bank doing this withdrawal, which that never happened. Since then, I done contacted the police station over here twice. I got 2 separate phone numbers, and I've been calling them constantly, and I don't get no reply. Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm out of $1,500 from the bank. As soon as this happened, I went to my bank president, and she told me I have to come to you all. After I come to you all, I get telephone numbers of people that work at the police station to check it out, and ain't nobody called me or contacted me yet about it. I'm seeking help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Is there a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Yes, Councilman Turner.
I have a question. I just want to get a better understanding from staff in reference to item number J. I just want a better understanding of what this process is, how it works. Do we contract someone out for those services, and what do those services entail?
Right, so item J is to consider a resolution approving a contract with Abercrombie, Simmons, and Gillette of Houston for workers' compensation claims administration. We do have Chris Catalina as Director of Human Resources here.
Good afternoon. I'm bringing Caltrina Minnick as well. So we had a 5-year contract previously with AS&G, the ones that were selected this time as well. And it was up to go out for bid again. And so what we do here for workers' comp, they're our third-party administrator, and they manage our claims for us, handle the claims, contact employees for workers' comp issues, issue checks, assist our department with medical care and also legal. So this is the time when we go out for bid, and we received several bids for this service. And then we've been with AS&G for a long time. They've met our expectations. They're really good to work with. And so with all the selections, we selected them again, and we have another contract to be considered. It's a 1-year contract, and then we have renewal for 4 times after that. So I can let Caltrina add to that or take any questions about the process.
Yes, good afternoon. So just to talk about the procedures a little bit, the city has been self-insured for workers' compensation, I believe, since the mid-'80s. And so it's standard procedure to have a third-party administrator on staff to help with all the claims that we have. As Chris explained, we've been with AS&G for a long time and are very happy with them. They came in as the second lowest bid. And one of the things that we really appreciate about the partnership with AS&G is that they have always been able to provide one adjuster for the city. Workers' comp is fast-paced. When somebody's injured, we need help. We need treatment right away, and this is something that they are able to provide. I'm also personally state certified in workers' compensation and work with them as well. So I'm the first contact here at the city, but they're our contract to help us handle the claims.
Thank you. That was the reason why I was asking for clarification, because I know when we look at money coming in and out the city, we try to be conservative about what's coming out. I just want to see the benefit of having it versus doing it in-house. That's why I was asking, and now I got a better understanding.
Good point, Chris. So next to also just handling the claims, they'll also do cost containment, which is very important. So workers' compensation bills or accepts bills under Medicare guidelines, and so they have a cost containment provider that all the bills go through, and so all the bills are reduced, which we're not able to do in-house. And like I said, it's really standard for cities to have a third-party administrator, since workers' comp is state regulated, to have them on staff to help us with that as well.
Well, thank you. That just kind of cleared up some of my concerns, just getting a general understanding of the why with the third party, but you kind of broke it down for me today.
Yes, sir. Any more questions?
It appears not. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, Councilman Getz.
I have a question about item F. It's the purchase of 2 stretchers, power press stretchers. And, you know, $33,500 a piece for a stretcher, a total of $67,000. What are these items? And we're trading them in for 2 older stretchers. We're only getting $1,750 credit for the trade-in. So they're not holding their value very well, or are the ones we trading in a different type? Somebody make it make sense to me.
Good evening. Those are the PowerPoint stretchers that no longer the lifting of the stretchers, they're actual PowerPoint, and that's an entire kit for 2 stretchers. And Max is here to explain to you exactly what they are.
Okay.
So the PowerPro stretcher are designed to basically lift up to about 700-pound patients. They are hydraulics, battery operated, which requires a system to keep it charged and whatnot. But in reality, they actually help our medics save their back, not necessarily having to lift like the old days. Guys like me now, we're having back problems, but that actually with a button, they're able to lift that. And majority of system are going through a hydraulic-based system.
Right. The ones that the older ones, they were not hydraulic-based?
They are, however, their life expectancy about 5 years or so, mechanical-wise. We do have a service maintenance and we try to use them as long as we can. But eventually, like I say, it's wear and tear on those equipment. It's not like where we run 1 or 2 calls. We are running constantly about 18, 20 calls per truck-wise to where it actually requires a lot of movements.
Okay. Do they do they work? Or
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
the older ones, are they still working or?
They work, but those are the ones that we usually have a lot of repair maintenance on them, wear and tear. We try to replace them every 2 years. So that way we operate about 9 or 10 of those, and we try to put it in the system to where we constantly replace them, not having to replace 10 of them simultaneously at one time.
At that cost that you can see. We're purchasing them, trying to keep the cost down.
Okay, I think I understand. Personally speaking, I admire the fact that, whether it be cars or equipment, we have a routine replacement program where we as a council get these agenda items and it says it's reached the end of its useful life expectancy. In your own home, when you're dealing with things, a lot of times you wait till things actually break. I understand this, this type of program, but we're not getting much trade-in value on it is all I can say about that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 1, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, item number 1 is to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to award a contract to Lopez Utilities Contractor, LLC of Houston, Texas, for the Wescalder Road Pipe Bursting Project. This is from Washington Boulevard to Baker Road. And this comes with a recommendation from the administration of approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion for item number 1?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 1. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 2?
Sir,
Assistant City Manager, excuse me.
Yes, sir. Item number 2 is to consider a resolution approving the repair of a Caterpillar 826K compactor for use on the landfill. This also comes with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 2?
Move to approve. Second.
There's a first and a second. There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 2. Is there any discussion? Yes, Councilman Turner.
And these type of repairs, is it normally any type of like warranty or anything like that associated?
The work includes a 3-year, 5,000-hour warranty on the new engine after the rebuild.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes.
So on the background, it said it has 11,900 hours on it, and it's expected to last somewhere between 13,000 and 15,000. Did something happen, or?
It experienced low oil pressure. After troubleshooting, it indicated there's a failure inside the engine requiring the rebuild. So yes, industry standard is 13 to 15,000 hours. We had it scheduled for a rebuild of the entire unit next fiscal year, but this one just failed a little bit early.
Okay. All right, thank you.
There's no other discussion. All in favor of approving item number 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 4, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 4 is to consider, 3.
That's what I meant to say.
Thank you, Tina. Item number 3 is to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute related documents to purchase of property located at 792 Catalpa Street. And this also comes with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 3?
Move to approve.
Second. It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 3. Is there any discussion on it? Yes, on item number 3. All in favor of approving item number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Assistant City Manager, may we please have the reading of item number 4?
Yes, sir. Item number 4 is to consider a resolution approving a contract to Vortex Companies for the multi-sensor inspection of the West Lucas Drive storm sewer. And the administration recommends approval of this resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 4?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 4. Any discussion? Yes, Councilman Getz.
Bart, this is basically just to televise the lines. It's not making any repairs. It's 12,000 linear feet, but maybe it's more than just running a camera through it. What, can you give us a little bit better idea of why this is costing so much?
Yes, sir. We have done ground penetrating radar down the length of the line. That was to identify cavities that have formed on the outside of the line. That cavity was what, a cavity like that was what caused the Lucas Gladys repair. We've also had a video inspection where we've gone through just with a GoPro and looked at the interior of the line. However, it's obvious at this point we're going to have to rehabilitate that line in its entirety. So this is a multi-sensor inspection that will give us exact measurements down the entire line so that we can accurately identify the sections that need point repair and the extents of those point repairs and what's required to line the pipe so that we can get an estimate and a tight bid when we come to rehabilitate that line. The more uncertainty that's there, then the worse the bids would be. So the more certainty there is on the engineering plans, the better off we'll be when we bid it out.
So when we are talking in terms of rehabilitating that line, are we not looking at just replacing the entire line, or are we just looking at replacing points that are close to failure, or?
We're looking at addressing it the same way that we did the Threadneedle outfall and the recent Long Street storm sewer. We'll do necessary point repairs along the line, and then we'll do an interior lining along it to form a new pipe, in essence, inside of the old pipe. The reason we're taking that approach is because to tear it up and open trench repair the pipe would be an order of magnitude greater in cost. By avoiding that, then we can keep the costs, I hate to say down because we're still talking millions of dollars, but much less than tearing up the entirety of Lucas and open trench pipe repair the whole thing.
And when you say order of magnitude, what?
Well, right now we're estimating that by the time we do the grout lining, the injection grouting, et cetera, that this will probably be $15 million in total by the time all's said and done. And we're talking over 2 miles.
And if we were to do open trench, you're talking about?
It maybe tens of millions for sure, but we're probably talking 60, 70, 100 million.
Okay.
Down the length of Lucas, something that I don't think we want to look at. I can come back and send to you all did an exact comparison for Long and for Threadneedle, and it was way extremely high over doing a repair without digging it up.
Thank you.
We vote for this one.
All right, all in favor of approving item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion is carried. Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 5, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 5 is a resolution authorizing eminent domain proceedings to acquire an exclusive water line easement at 7705 Water Edge. And this is recommended by the administration for approval as well.
Is there a motion for item number 5?
Move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval for item number 5. Is there any discussion? Yes, Councilman Turner, then Councilman Felshaw.
That eminent domain term, can you kind of talk to me about the steps and procedures we took prior to even getting to this point?
We've contacted the homeowner or the property owner and also had the appraisal done for what the value of the easement is, and they've been unwilling to accept the offer. We're having water quality issues because this is a dead-end line there, and we need to loop the line. So what we're asking for is just an easement between the two houses so that we can put the water line in, loop it, and eliminate those water quality issues. So since we can't come to agreement on a settlement, we need to initiate eminent domain. They'll be notified. There'll be an initial court date. If they show up and contest it, then I believe a three-person panel, impartial judges will be appointed to oversee the results of the value of the property.
Yes, sir. So they actually been responsive. It's just no cooperation.
Yes, sir.
And they understand the importance of what's going on with the water quality in the area.
One would hope they're building a house there, so they're going to be dependent upon the water quality. But Mike Harris is here. He can talk to the struggles they've had trying to flush that line and keep the residuals up.
Please.
Yeah, Councilman Turner, since about 2021, we've had 6 to 7 water quality complaints just at the dead end of Water Edge where the cul-de-sac is. There's 6-inch water main that dead ends at that cul-de-sac, which, without the usage that's there because the houses are not there, the water, of course, ages. We have even as far as went in and put in an automatic flusher that will flush several hours a day, or I should say at night, to keep the water fresh coming in, but we still struggle with that particular area on the water quality. So like I said, what we're looking at doing is extending the 6-inch main around the cul-de-sac, cut through the property at the property line and tying into the 6-inch main on Sienna to where the loop feed instead of just dead end.
And that'll give you guys more control for the quality of the water for the whole.
It keeps the water from just sitting there aging.
Got
So
you.
you can loop in from both areas.
Got you.
So.
Yes, Councilman Durio?
Bart, you said they're building a house. Will this work get in the way of them building their house at all?
No, sir. It's right on the property line between the two properties. Once the line's put in, it won't impact them at all.
And also for the public, that eminent domain, we rarely use it. We use that only when it's for the good of the community, correct?
Yes, sir. And in this case, we're struggling to meet TCEQ requirements on chlorine residuals, so we really need to loop that line to keep everything in compliance.
Thank you.
To extend on that, eminent domain is limited to exclusively for public purposes. You can't just take it for economic development or those other things. So staff has met the requirement for that in determining that it's necessary to provide services to that area. Also, utility easements are very common and they don't interfere with property. Typically, we identify if a utility easement already exists in that neighborhood. We would have identified that when they were building the house. So the line of the easement that we're requesting won't interfere with their property or diminish their property line at all.
Thank you.
Councilman Felshaw?
Thank you, Mayor. I know we use this reluctantly on eminent domain. I understand it's not that much money, $675. I understand that they rejected our offer, which is fair market value. So my question is, did they counter? Did they come back with a number and it's too high, or did they just flat out reject all our negotiation?
My understanding is they just rejected the appraisal.
Period, with no counter.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Okay, since this is a eminent domain question, we're going to have a call for a record vote. Every councilman will have to vote separately.
Mayor West,
Vote for it.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner,
For it.
Councilmember Durio,
For it?
Member Getz,
All right.
Councilmember Felshaw, Councilmember Samuel,
For it.
and Councilmember Neal.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 6, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 6 is to consider an ordinance denying Texas Gas Service Company proposed rates. And this item comes along with a recommendation of approval of the ordinance.
Is there a motion for item number 6?
Move to approve. Second.
There is a first and a second for approval of item number 6. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 7?
Yes, sir. Item number 7 is to consider amending Chapter 24 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Beaumont to reflect updated construction codes and local amendments. You may recall we had a work session on this issue at the last meeting, and this ordinance is recommended by the administration.
Is there a motion for item number 7?
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. There is a first and a second for approval of item number 7. Is there any discussion? Councilman Turner.
Yes, Mr. Boone, just for people watching who may not have tuned in last week, when we say a follow-up from last week and what we're actually updating, can we kind of speak to some of that?
Yes, sir. So as you recall, council last year had made some amendments to the ordinance, well, the construction ordinances. And so what we're proposing today is the adoption of basically the 2021 International Building Code, existing building code, International Fire Code, International Residential Code, International Mechanical Code, the 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code, the 2021 International Fuel Code, 2020 Electric Code, International Energy Conservation Code, 2021 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, 2020 ICC 600 windstorm or wind rating codes, and then the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code. So again, City of Beaumont, for their construction codes, we operate under the international standards and the Uniform Plumbing Code. And so usually about every 3 years, they have a new version of the code that comes out. And so this is the most recent current ICC code in this family. And so as we discussed at our last meeting, staff has done a lot of work in reaching out to the development community, the construction community, the different trades to make sure that everyone's aware of what changes are in the new codes. But what we're doing here today is simply adopting finally those new codes with a few local exceptions.
Yes, sir, Mr. Boone. I kind of like to thank Boyd and Bo because they really went above and beyond. Like, even when you go to marketing these codes, like, one thing I'm big on is making sure the people who do business in this community understand the changes that are taking place. And you guys kind of went on a campaign explaining the changes, and you worked hard quickly to get these codes updated, because I remember we were a few years back when we discussed this last year. So, hats off to expediting and the quick work and actually physically going out in the community, talking to the people who do this type of work. I think one of our focuses in our strategic plan was being more customer service friendly. And I think that's the approach that I really appreciate our city taking. So, Mr. Boone, thank y'all for that.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Felshaw.
Chris, you read off a lot of codes.
Yes, sir.
They're all international except one, the plumbing code, which is UPC.
Yes, sir.
But all other codes that we use is international.
Yes, sir.
Does that create a hardship upon the public? Contractors.
Contractors? No, sir. I mean, you may remember we had a good bit of discussion last year on that question. And again, with the outreach that Bo and Boyd did and some other staff did with the trade industry, the feedback we got was both internally and externally that we'll be fine with either code. And so just in discussion with Boyd and Bo, we haven't had any issues moving
Was
forward.
that UPC code for commercial only, or does it also include residential?
And residential.
No, it's just commercial.
Just commercial. Apologies. Just commercial.
Thank you.
Okay, if no other discussion, all in favor of approving item number 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 8, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 8 is to consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a duplex within the RS Residential Single Family Dwelling District for property located at 5445 Garner Road. This item was heard by the Planning Commission at a joint public hearing February 26, 2024, and was recommended by the Planning Commission 6-0 for approval of the request with the following conditions. Number 1, construction plans must meet all requirements by water utilities for water and sanitary sewer services, including any requirements of the city's backflow prevention and/or fog program. Number 2, construction plans shall comply with all applicable fire and building code requirements. And number 3, a 4-foot wide sidewalk shall be installed along Garner Road. The administration is recommending approval of this ordinance, this item, with those same conditions. I should point out, though, we did have opposition to this item during the Planning Commission. 28% of the surrounding land area were opposed to this application. As a result, we would need 3/4 of the city council or a supermajority in order to approve this item. But the administration does recommend approval with those conditions.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for item number 8?
Move to approve with conditions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 8. Is there any discussion? Councilman Turner, then Councilman Samuel.
Mr. Boone, I know you said it was 28%.
Yes, sir.
Can you kind of speak to some of the things that 28% spoke in reference to?
Yes, sir. 1 second. So as you're aware, we send out notifications to property owners within 200 feet of an item such as this. And the responses we got back was from one property owner, the Lopez's. They were opposed to this item, but with no comment. And I believe that was the only one, but again, because they own so much land adjacent, that's what triggers the supermajority. So
it wasn't multiple, it was.
Well, we haven't, let me see, we have Mr. Janice also opposed, no comment. So I'm not sure the specifics as to what their opposition was. We have a Regina Rico opposed, no comment. Let's see. We have a Jennifer Peterson opposed. Ms. Peterson says, "This will change the neighborhood and I do not want to see that." So I think that was the only one where we had some kind of qualitative comments as to why they were opposed.
Councilman Samuel?
Yes, I would like to get some understanding as to what we plan to do with Garner Road. Because I understand why the residents of that area would have a concern. The ditches there are over 3 or 4 feet deep. The road is narrow, and there's very little ability to walk on either side of the street there. With this development and increased traffic, it's going to create a bigger danger. As you get to the bridge, that area is about to wash out right where the bridge comes to the canal. So I'd like to know what are our overall plans for Garner Road at this time. If we have plans to do anything to at least close in one side and widen the street or what? Because I would be very concerned if I lived on Garner Road.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any improvements planned for Garner Road at this time. Bart, do you know of any?
It hasn't been a topic of discussion up till now. I'd have to check in on it.
Well, it's difficult for me to make a decision to move forward with that, but that would be penalizing the applicant who's attempting to do something with and develop his property. However, I'm concerned about the greater good, and that greater good is the community that's around there. I know from Helbig Road over to Concord, all of the ditches are deep and the road is narrow. Something has to be done. And I made this a request prior to this about what we're doing with Garner Road.
Perhaps, I know from being at the planning and zoning that evidently there's a older structure there that's unused, and they're talking about, tearing that down and putting in this duplex. Would it, with your questions, it could be appropriate that perhaps we table this and get those answers to see if in terms of the safety issue for the road, to be able to make a decision?
And actually, I brought it up on a map. So, Councilman, you talked to us about that bridge. We were addressing a patch that had been put in that was a bit rough going in, so they were going to readdress that and smooth it out. But the section of Garner from Helbig until the park in particular, which is a different section than what we're talking about here with the duplex, we were going to look at a future rehab and dealing with that section of Garner. The remainder of Garner from the park on to Concord Road was in much better shape than the first section that we're in discussion about. So we were looking at that for future rehab, but not widening or changing the shape of the road in any way, just rehabbing.
Okay. Well, I think it's very important that we consider that now because one, they're still doing development in that new area where it curves and goes straight into the developed addition.
Yes, and that was part of our concern as well with that first section from the park to Helbig, is that the development is within that section. That's going to drive more traffic on that road as well.
And the duplex would.
The duplex is close to Concord. It's on the other side.
That's past that fenced-in area.
If I'm reading the map correctly, this is close to Concord.
The duplex is about 200 feet off of Concord.
Right.
Behind Target.
Well,
Yeah, to the left. To the left side. Yeah. Well, that is a concern. I would say we need to do something. And so that's my position.
Councilman Durio, Turner, Felshaw.
So back on what you said, Mayor, right now there's a structure there that's inhabitable. People can't live there. And they want to tear it down. They want to put a new structure. A duplex basically is going to be a house, but it's like split in half. You'll have two people or two families living there. Will that really increase the traffic that much to where it would be a danger? Anybody?
You probably estimate 5 to 6 trips per unit per day. So you might be adding a dozen trips to the system.
And really, well, looking on the map here, it's like this structure is going to be in the middle, and there's one on each side of it, and a couple of them across the street. But the way I look at it, though, they're gonna put a nice structure there. Whatever they build there is gonna be nicer than what's there right now. That's all I want to say.
Councilman Turner, Councilman Felshaw.
Yes, for staff, one of my concerns is I always like to see things specifically in the older neighborhoods get an upgrade, but it's also a concern of mine to oversaturate things and developers move on to other projects and you kind of leave those properties dormant. So I think it's extremely important with the aesthetics of our neighborhood. We pay attention to what goes up that's already similar in that area. So we don't want a lot of vacant apartment buildings that kind of are going down and ran down and houses as well. So though I appreciate the development, it's also a concern of mine when you start duplicating these things and you leave the old properties vacant and kind of an eyesore.
Councilman Felshaw, then Councilman Samuel.
Councilman Samuel, this is in your ward, and so you're very familiar with this, and that's why your opinion matters to me. Knowing now that you've brought this to our attention and this is on our radar and that we do need to address this issue at some point in the future, would you be more comfortable than supporting this project at this time?
As I was about to say, I can support the project because I understand I want the attention to Garner Road. It's heavy traffic there. Again, I don't want to stop the private development. That's good for the area. I think the goal has been met. My purpose has been met. So I think everyone understands that.
Councilman Turner, did you have something else? Okay. If there's no other discussion, do we need to do a roll call on this?
Supermajority.
Supermajority?
Yes, sir.
Mayor West,
For.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner, Councilmember Durio,
Yes.
Councilmember Getz,
Yes.
Councilmember Felshaw,
Yes.
Councilmember Samuel,
Yes.
and Councilmember Neal.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll change mine to a yes instead of 4. I didn't want to. Mr. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 9, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 9 is to consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a church within the RS Residential Single Family Dwelling District for property located at 2190 Milam Street. This item was heard at a joint public hearing on February 26, 2024. The Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the request with the following conditions. Number 1, shall remedy all code violations associated with 2190 Milam Street prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Number 2, a parking lot permit shall be obtained and illustrate the proposed parking lot layout to be in accordance with city standards, including installation of wheel stops to delineate spaces. Number 3, shall be in compliance with section 28.04.006 landscaping and screening requirements if the parking lot increases by 25% or more in the number of parking spaces. Number 4, construction plans must meet all requirements by water utilities for water and sanitary sewer services, including any requirements of the city's backflow, pretreatment and/or fog program. And then finally, number 5, construction plans must meet all applicable fire and building code requirements, including obtaining all applicable building permits. And the administration recommends approval of this item with the same conditions.
Is there a motion for item number 9?
Move to approve with conditions.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 9. Is there any discussion? All in favor of approving item number 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. Assistant City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 10, please?
Yes, sir. Item number 10 is to consider a request for amendments to the zoning ordinance concerning a yard requirements for planned unit and cluster housing development, sections 28.04.004 and 28.04.008. And this application has been made by the City of Beaumont staff in order to reduce the minimum required setbacks for PUD as well as cluster housing. In general, these require a 25-foot setback, and we're requesting that that be changed to 10 in order to better meet the patterns of such developments. And so this item was held at a joint public hearing February 26, 2024 by the Planning Commission and recommended 6-0 for approval of the request. The administration recommends the request of the item as well.
Is there a motion for item number 10, please?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 10. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 10, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Madam City Attorney, will you please take us into the two different work sessions?
Yes, sir. We're going to start with Chapter 6, which deals with the towing ordinance. Just going to wait. Technology is great. So this review came from a request from Councilman Getz to look at what we can do to correct some of the issues that we were having with our tow trucks parking on public streets. And then also what we can do to eliminate that. I want to point out that this really isn't going to impact legitimate towing businesses. There's nothing in the proposed changes that is super harmful to any of them. So the ordinances that, the changes that we're proposing for businesses that are already doing what they're supposed to won't really impact them. Next slide. So the proposed changes, again, we did discuss this with BPD, the traffic division, which will be overseeing these enforcements. And so they reviewed them and thought that these were good changes to be made. So the appropriate entities have been identified and are on board with these changes. The first change would be to add, this is a completely new section, that's why it's completely highlighted, but these individuals would be responsible for not violating any of the ordinances within 5 years. This is not currently in our ordinance. It does still allow some discretion with the police chief to look into that, but and it still allows for the due process that's allowed for under the ordinance, which would allow them to appeal that decision either to council or to independent hearing person. Next slide. And then finally, the last one, this allows for them to not, again, violate any provisions of the code. There is an ordinance that is in another part of the thing in our business, another part of this chapter, in Chapter 6, that says that you can't park on a public street within certain hours. The current code only talks about, or I'm sorry, the current ordinance only limits restrictions to violations of this article only. So this would expand that enforcement to all of our city ordinances to include specifically that ordinance that prohibits parking on a public street. So what are we looking at today? We're going to discuss it. We're going to send out notices to, because this is also on the agenda for approval at the request of a Councilman Getz, and I believe Councilman Neal seconded it at the last meeting. So we're going to review and adopt it today, which is item 11. We have prepared a letter that PD will send out to all of the registered truck owners based on our tow list, and then we are looking for full adoption of the changes by May 1st, and that just gives them, again, a chance to kind of become in line with that.
Councilman Turner?
Just for clarity, are we discussing, just tow trucks or 18-wheelers, or is it just specifically tow trucks?
This ordinance deals with tow trucks and towing companies. The ordinance that would be attached for 18-wheelers would have to do with that other section that prohibits parking large access vehicles on public streets. They can still park in residential neighborhoods if they're parked in a private drive, but they just cannot be parked on residential streets.
Okay, so they just can't be on the streets?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Getz?
Madam Attorney, thank you for bringing this to us. This has become quite a nuisance for neighbors and portions of the ward that I serve. The streets are already somewhat narrow, and we have tried to work with these tow truck vendors. They completely ignore the city ordinances that prohibit their parking their trucks on the streets. I don't know what's happening in municipal court. I think they've been fined, but, they just continue to do it. It makes it difficult for emergency vehicles to pass. It makes it difficult for residents to pass if there's cars coming from both directions they can't get by. So, I think it's really important that we do this as it gives us another arrow in our quiver to enforce tow trucks from not complying with their city ordinances.
Right, and so right now, I guess it's limited, like the revocation portion didn't include the entirety of the code, so them receiving a citation for parking on the street outside of the towing ordinance wasn't really considered with their application. These amendments would allow the chief who's been tasked with issuing those permits to kind of consider that, and whether they want to suspend it for a certain amount of time or revoke their permit entirely.
Councilman Durio?
So I'm looking at this picture. Is this something they're gonna put on the tow trucks or when they write the ticket? Or what I'm getting at, is it a chance that the tow truck's gonna be towed? And are they on a rotation? What if the company they work for is the one that comes out to tow them?
So we're hoping that it doesn't come to that, but yes, and so our planning manager just texted me, so that semis can't park in residential neighborhoods, so they would be restricted from that. But a tow truck could park if they're parked in the
driveway?
In the driveway, just can't be parked on the street. So we're hoping that, because this impacts their ability to do business in the city in a significant way, that they will not be a lot of pushback to this. It's not our intention to make it difficult for people to do business in the city, but we do want to be respectful to those citizens that are having trouble getting to their houses or navigating down narrow streets. That's kind of the purpose of that, is that they take up a lot of space on that.
But don't we already have ordinances that you can't park commercial vehicles in a residential neighborhood?
Yes, and so this one will just kind of allow teeth to this particular ordinance, so that if they do park or they are cited for that violation, it could affect their ability to remain legitimately towing in our city. Because if we revoke their permit to tow, then we report it to the state, so that affects their license in its entirety. So it's just kind of a little bit, as the Councilman Guest pointed out, a little bit more teeth to our ordinance to allow for greater or better enforcement.
Okay. On that other one about what I mentioned about the commercial vehicles, does the being able to park in the driveway, does that apply to them also?
No, I believe she said that semis can't park in residential districts, period.
Okay.
And then Boone would know.
Period, not at all.
Okay.
What about tow trucks?
So they're not considered semis by definition. They're technically, I believe, can park in a private driveway, just not on the street. And so this one stops them, but they're not parking in private driveways, because most of the areas where this is a big problem is they don't have the driveway width for it. So instead they're parking on the street or blocking their driveway to do that. And so they're not parked in a driveway or off of the street. And so they're creating a hazard for those citizens.
So now they're just gonna start parking in the front yard?
Well,
They off the street.
well, not in the historic district, because that's against the rules. And so if they did that in historic district, according to the new ordinance changes, that would be a violation that would allow them to have their permit revoked. So hopefully it doesn't come to that.
Yes, Councilman Felshaw.
Madam Attorney, Section 1, C2 speaks to the fact if they're convicted, the chief of police can suspend their license.
Suspend and revoke, yes, sir.
Revoke it. Didn't you say that if they don't agree with that decision, they have a recourse?
Yeah, so,
They can come before the council?
yeah, in any provision that allows for permitting as a right, always has to be a due process provision. So also part of this ordinance that we did not change, because there was not a necessity to do so, is that they can appeal any revocation or suspension of their license. And it gives them an option to either come before council to do that, or to request that an independent hearing person be appointed. And there's a process which they do that through the city manager's office.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
If hearing none, we'll move directly into Chapter 10. Very exciting.
Madam Attorney, would it be appropriate to go ahead and take up 11 before we do that work session, since it relates to it, or no?
At the discretion of the chair, the mayor, and the city manager, is totally up to you.
Want to go ahead and vote on
We have
the
it
item?
scheduled to follow after this work session.
Technology.
This is exciting.
All you, Sheree.
Okay. So we're going to look to Chapter 10. This was an initiative that was brought forth by Councilman Turner and Councilman Durio. And at the last meeting, Councilman Turner and Councilman Neal requested that it be workshopped at this meeting. So that's what we're going to do. So we were charged, or at least my office was charged with, to revise the ordinance to reflect a more friendly approach to food truck units without compromising safety standards, to align more with the council's goal 3 of the strategic plan, which is to have a fun place to live, vibrant community, good place to live. So the process for this is going to take you all the way back to when we first did a workshop years ago. We workshopped it originally for 2015, and then in 2023, council adopted a revised Chapter 10, and then in 2024, that same next year, we were asked to make revisions. So that's where we are now. After, and this kind of came, if you remember, we had a little taste of the triangle snafu, and so people said like our ordinances were a little too strict. So council said let's backdate and look at that, and so that's what we're here to do. So, and I got these numbers from Emily Wheeler, who manages our events facilities and manages the events with the city. But we do about 550 plus events every year. All of them serve food. So our food ordinances impact all of those events. 53 of those events have food truck vendors. 27 are city events. 7 of those are events that we partner with, and 19 of those events are what we consider client events, where the city doesn't have any partnership interest. We're just providing facilities for them to operate. So the focus for this is we focus heavily on section 10.0207, which specifically deals with food trucks and special events, since that was the charge from council at that time. We wanted to address some recent concerns raised by council and the vendors to provide a more practical application. And again, the focus was becoming more festival-friendly city without compromising any safety. So in our approach, what we did is we compared our ordinance to some other Texas cities. There were 3 that stood out to us for various reasons. First was Austin, very large city, lots of food trucks, lots of food truck parks. The second one was Dayton, city close by, a lot smaller, but very emerging city, looking to be more festival friendly as well. And then Midland, which is a city that was more comparable to our size. In doing so, we kind of looked at what did they share our similar objectives, and I would say that they do. I think most cities are looking to be more event friendly or festival friendly, and as the popularity of food trucks grow, most cities are embracing that as well. We also wanted to make sure that there were clear expectations from our ordinance. A lot of the concerns that were raised from vendors is that it was unclear what was being asked. So we wanted to kind of be clear about that. Also did not want to sacrifice any safety of our citizens or make sure that we fell below the state requirements. There are several changes that we are proposing. So you'll see the current language on the left side of your screen and our proposed language on the right side. Definitely not going to read to you guys, but the changes that we're adding are in bold. So those changes basically relate to allowing for more clarity in when food receipts would be required, what the next steps would be. I do want to take a minute to pause and say that our health director is here, that we did discuss some of these changes with them as well, but I would also invite him if he has comments at this time to kind of share, or concerns to kind of share those with council. Our office isn't making a recommendation to council today on any of these changes. We're just presenting what could possibly be potential changes to our ordinance. So I want to make that very, very clear.
Can I ask a question about the previous slide?
Oh, sure, go back.
All right, so on the proposed changes right here, we're just talking about purchase daily and accompanied by receipts. So what about all the events? Think about like M&D Supply all the time that has Boy Scouts and different groups that cook on Saturday and Sunday. So they have to go physically buy the stuff that day that they're gonna cook?
Yes, sir.
That's ridiculous.
Well, according to Texas food establishment rules, you have to have a commissary or a central preparation facility, and that's for servicing, preparing, and storing. So allowing organizations to buy food a day before, a week before they sell it on a Saturday, our concern is, where's it being stored? Is it being stored at the right temperature? That's our concern. That's where the safety come in at.
So the last time we visited this was 2015, and then we did it again in 2023. What changed between 15 and 23 that's changed all of this?
Justin, I have my staff here with me. I don't think much have changed because what you guys adopted in 2023 was the Texas food establishment rule, would come from the state of Texas.
So I think that there were some updates in that point when we first approached this in 2015 and when it was presented to be adopted by council, there were some changes. So when we adopted it in 2023 or proposed it to be adopted, we were adopting new food range. So I think the food handling, and Justin, you can check me, but the food handling certificate requirements had changed. What they were calling some of the things had changed. There were several state requirements that changed when we presented it to council in 2023 that we needed to adopt and kind of catch up with the state requirements. Just kind of like any code, when the state makes changes, then the cities whose ordinances are reflective or adoptive of the state codes kind of need to be adopted to kind of keep up. So from what I can recall, the food handler certificate changed and some of those other elements changed. And I think that they also kind of adopted to kind of keep up with the emerging food truck thing. This one, the biggest thing to point out is that if you don't have a commissary, then you have to purchase the food daily so that we can make sure that it wasn't stored in someone's home or left out daily.
Mayor, in comparison to the other cities we compared to, when we speaking to the purchasing the day of versus any other system, what was taking place in those other cities?
So most of those cities, and I'm gonna, I know y'all think I'm a one-woman show. I am not. I have a great staff. And so this kind of came at a time when we had a million things going on. So I'm very grateful for my assistant, Chase Ingeman, who did a lot of the research that made this presentation possible. So I'm gonna defer to him a lot as well. So share that mic, Mr. Coleman. But a lot of the cities, and I think what we need to point out is that a lot of cities, because they are wanting to become food truck and festival cities, are offering commissaries now. That's a big thing. City-operated commissaries. In some cities that are super large, people recognize that is a cash cow for them, right? So they have those commissaries, but some of those cities that don't or that didn't have it originally are offering it to them to make it easier. We understand and appreciate that a lot of people order their food from Cisco, right? And so they need to have that somewhere to store it. If you don't have a commissary to store that bulk amount of food that you're ordering, that's been inspected and approved, then our health director has recommended that you need to show us that it was purchased that day and not stored, at your house overnight.
So just to follow up, that was one of my concerns about the data-driven decisions, because if you notice, one thing that I think we're pretty prominent for in Beaumont are our events, whether it be Juneteenth, 4th of July, Mural Fest, Mardi Gras, the list goes on and on. And that's what I want to kind of look at, just the data and what those other cities are doing. Not to say we're doing anything wrong, but what can we do to become just as good or more competitive in that magnitude?
One of the things that we did, though, eliminate is the requirement for people who come in out of the city to do that. So if you have a commissary where you are, need or import niches, right? You have a restaurant. There's several vendors who participate at festivals that have a food truck or that, you know, serve food as a vendor who have their own restaurant, which is considered a commissary, right? So if you can show us that you have that, an approved commissary, then that receipt requirement would be necessary. You can just kind of show us it's legitimate, not spoiled food.
Councilman Getz, is your question about the comparables? Because I know he's up there. Okay, go ahead. Your mic's not on.
So one of the concerns I have is that, you know, when you have a restaurant that has refrigeration, there's really no guarantee that even though they have a refrigeration, that somebody hadn't dropped the ball and left food out there on the counter to spoil, and that it's not being kept at the right temperature. Conversely, some food trucks have refrigeration units, and if they need to buy food the day before so they can begin early prep in the morning of their food, you know, there's really nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Every vendor that sells food to the public is required to have a certified food handler, somebody that has been trained, that knows what food is supposed to be kept at what temperature, guards against the process of cross-contamination. I'm a little concerned that by making this difference between food truck units and restaurants, we are making it more difficult for food trucks than necessarily it needs to be. The other thing I'm thinking about is in terms of our proposed food truck park, what are we going to be able to do to provide relief to the proposed vendors in the food truck park from being required to buy their food daily, you know, in terms of working at a commissary with a commissary? These things need to be thought about and addressed at this time too.
So the food truck park, again, I believe on the drawing, it had a space in that back part for a commissary. So they would have access to a commissary and they would be able to leave and be parked overnight. So they would actually, at least at that food truck park, would have a commissary that they had access to. So that particular food truck park, the one that was operated by the city, would be in compliance. They would be able to order their food and store it in the commissary. And when we came to inspect the commissary, it's our commissary, so I would hope we would pass. When we came to inspect, as long as they were able to show that, you know, or that we could show that the temperature of the food was maintained at the proper temperature and it was a clean space, then they'd be good to go. Next slide. There's a lot. So again, the language that we're adding, it's going to be in the bold portion. This one does just allow for vendors that are located outside the city to have a better opportunity to come in as long as they have a copy of their most recent health inspection. They will be able to come into the city and participate at these events.
So in the event, the food truck operator worked with another company that had a commissary, all they would have to do is show that that commissary had license and had been inspected and show that inspection.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One question.
Yes, sir.
All right, so it says if a food establishment is not located within the city, then you go down here to the bottom, they have to buy the food in Beaumont?
No, they don't have to buy
It
the
says,
food.
or other retail store located within the city. It says that the food was purchased from a permitted grocery store or other retail store located in the city. So let me just be clear. You know, we have fish markets here that are not considered grocery stores. So if I'm doing crawfish and I wanted to go to Page's, because they really have good crawfishes and seafood. But I wanted to go to Pages on off of Gladys. I could go there and show that it was purchased there as opposed to having to purchase crawfish from HEB, which is considered a grocery store. So it's from a grocery store or other food retail store.
To
You can't
answer
buy
your
food off the
question,
back of a truck.
they can get their food from Brookshire Brothers. That's an approved source. They don't have to buy their food from an approved source within the city limits of Beaumont.
But they would have to have a receipt.
Yes, showing that it came from an approved source, because people sell stuff on the side of the road. And so,
But this verbiage here implies that.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you can buy it from a grocery store or another retail store. You just can't.
But I think Councilman Neal was asking the question, does it have to be in the city of Beaumont?
No, it's got to be close though, because it's got to be the same day.
The verbiage says located within the city of Beaumont. I kind of think the confusion is that verbiage isn't as clear.
Okay. So again, this is proposed language. I'm happy to provide counsel with this hand document. And so if there are notes or feedbacks that would provide, I guess, additional clarity, I'm happy to receive that. I don't think that if it's purchased outside the city, that's a big deal as long as we're seeing receipts with that. Keeping in mind that anytime somebody purchases food outside of the city, they have to have, that's frozen or not, they have to have a travel plan for it to make sure, and that's already in the ordinance, we didn't touch that, but they have to have a travel plan for that food to make sure it's maintained at the proper temperature.
So
You can't have it
mentioned
thawing out.
You mentioned frozen, and that's, so, if you buy something in bulk that is frozen,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a food vendor, I might not be planning on using all that up in one day. I might get a load and then, do it throughout that week.
So most of those are restaurants, and so they have approved commissaries. Most food trucks don't have the storage capacity unless they have a commissary to store that amount of bulk food. So most of them who order food from Cisco and it's frozen, they're going to pack what they can at their commissary, but they don't have a lot of ability to store on their truck. They just don't have the refrigeration to keep it at that thing. Most of the time on their truck, it's prep. They have what's prepped, so they're pulling to cook. They're not pulling to thaw out. So if a food truck had ordered food from Cisco and it was at their approved, and if they stored it at their approved commissary, they'd be fine because the commissary would be inspected as well.
Okay,
So that wouldn't affect their food truck storage.
okay.
But we can provide this language. So if there's specific things that y'all come up and you see that you want to amend, staff will take that back and workshop it and make sure that it still works.
if I can say something, to address what Councilman Neal was saying, that he thinks it can pose a problem with people having to buy food daily, every day. With our current ordinance right now, we deal with mobile food units cooking out of their home. We deal with mobile food units not going to dump their gray water at the commissary. They dump it in the city drain, which when it solidifies with all that grease, it impacts the city overall water system. We deal with that right now. So that's the whole idea behind the commissary, to ensure that they're properly disposing of their gray water, not dumping it in the city drain, right? We had that issue recently at Mardi Gras, that they were dumping the water where they weren't supposed to be dumping the water. I mean, we catching people now cooking food out of their home and then selling it. And so for us as public health, it's all about food safety. So we have to have some rules in place to ensure that what they're selling is safe to consume. And so when you don't have a commissary where you can store your food as a licensed facility that's inspected by us, then I have to have an idea where you're keeping your food. And so if you don't have that commissary for that, then you have to show proof of receipt that you purchased it daily from an approved source, because that tells us from this approved source, I've inspected that source. I've inspected that grocery store. I've inspected that retail store. And I know their refrigeration and their freezers is holding the correct temperature. And when you get in time and temperature when it comes to food, that's when you run the risk of foodborne illnesses. That's when you run the risk of foodborne outbreaks.
Councilman Getz.
You mentioned Mardi Gras, and there's a lot of those food truck vendors that come in for Mardi Gras and for the upcoming Southeast Texas State Fair from out of town. Let's just take, for instance, somebody that's selling kebabs, okay? I don't think some of those vendors are from Beaumont. I think they're from out of town. What do we currently do to make sure that their product is being stored at a safe temperature before they put them on the grill at the fair or at Mardi Gras?
They have a contract with Ford Park Arena to store their product at Ford Park.
And was that for Mardi Gras too?
Well, Mardi Gras, what we did for Mardi Gras as what we offer for the Taste of the Triangle with Inland Event Center, we was allowing them to use our facilities at the Civic Center as well as the Event Center. They could have brought their stuff in and stored it there.
As a commissary?
As a commissary. And some of them chose not to. I mean, I don't know how much more inviting that could be free of charge. It was no extra charge to them. That's just what we were offering for them to be able to come in and participate.
We have facilities at the event center.
Like the kitchen area, that's permitted, yes.
But there's freezers in there too?
Yes. Yes, there's freezers and refrigerators there.
How does that work when you have multiple food truck vendors and, well, this is my food, don't be messing over here with my food? Yeah, how does that all work?
We don't get into that. I just don't think they would, somebody would steal somebody's product. But
They put shrimp in there.
No, I've had several conversations with our health department and several restaurants, and some of the restaurants, a couple of them that chose not to participate in the latest Taste of the Triangle. And I want to say, I know from my standpoint, our first responsibility is public safety. If the people expect us to be able to deliver on that. And if an event at the Civic Center or a festival, somebody got sick or that happened on more than one occasion, it would tank the event. People would quit going just because they couldn't trust the system. This year Taste of the Triangle, despite the talk, a week before was completely sold out. And one of the restaurants that was in the press for not participating, I reached out to because as mayor, I was concerned. And he had never talked to the city. He wasn't upset with the city. He had chosen not to do it. And it was stating that he didn't do it because the city of Beaumont was being unreasonable with their health demands. And that made the press, and that was why I knew it. That's why I reached out to him directly. So my concern in this is I think whenever food trucks are successful and people are coming and using them, they're going to be there and they're going to comply by the rules because they want to make money. When we have a problem with food trucks, one thing is we may not have events that handle the number of people that come, and then a food truck doesn't sell enough and it's not worth it to them, so they may not come back next time. So, because I have been told that by some food trucks, hey, if you don't limit this to X number, I'm not going to go because there's only so many people buying. So I don't know that from when I've talked to people, it's not so much the rules, it's about how much money they can make. And I do want to add that because with the recent press, I reached out to individuals that were listed in the media to ask them rather than just trust how it was being reported, and found there to be a different story. So, and I'm happy to share with you who that was off record.
So we have a lot of proposed changes, and I don't want to squash discussion, but again, I would appreciate if council would just kind of make that note to me. I'm going to provide it, review it, give some feedback, and we'll workshop it back to staff. I want to be able to present it all so we can kind of get a big picture of what it looks like, because I think some of the questions or concerns are kind of addressed in other parts of the presentation. Next slide. So this one, again, highlighted in bold for you. This one deals again with cities outside or food trucks outside of the city. And so one of the biggest concerns here is that we don't have enforcement authority outside. So for those facilities located outside the city, they would just need to show that they had a approved inspection within that time period. Next slide. Again, the changes are in bold for this. Again, this one deals with inspections at those facilities and requirements for mobile food truck units. This one was a large addition to this particular section just to add more clarity for restaurants operating outside of the city of Beaumont. Again, intended to allow them to come in to participate within the city without as many restrictions prior. This one deals more with those food trucks that have, I guess you want to call more stationary functions. There are several food trucks. I don't know if y'all remember Struggle Street, but they were connected. They had a food truck outside their business. It was a beer establishment. The food truck was outside. This would allow for them to kind of have some connectivity if they were adjacent to a building. And I believe that one was located on Calder as well. We added our other approved location, again, just to allow for some greater activity if there is a, I guess, a restaurant or a spot where they can park and it's approved by the health department, it'll allow for that as well.
Sure. If I can interject on this one, under the grease and grit trap ordinance, there is an exception for festivals of 10 days or less that allows for the food trucks to dump their gray water directly into the sanitary sewer without a grease trap during festivals.
Thank you, Bart.
You're welcome.
Same, again, our changes are in bold. This allows for them to have sanitation storage overnight for a mobile food truck unit, which was not allowed before. If it's on property owned by the unit. Again, I want to point out that we have businesses that have mobile food trucks. They're located, or they might have a adjacent property that is zoned, that allows for this type of thing. It's not intended for them to have to be parked on the public street in a residential neighborhood. We don't want that, but definitely if they have the space to park it, there are a couple of food trucks that are owned by restaurants that could park it on their parking lot if that was available to them. This one deals with on-site prep. And this one, again, adds for clarity for those businesses that are operating outside of the city. And so as long as they're operating outside of the city at an establishment or a licensed commissary, they would be able to come in without as many restrictions as well. Okay, so this one again applies to kind of, I guess, what the councilman gets started with the Boy Scouts, so the link cells and so forth. And so they would have to have a transportation plan also for food that's being served outside of the city. As we talked about earlier, if you're going to be bringing food in from another vendor, you need to have a transportation plan to make sure that that food is going to be maintained at the proper temperature. This one increased the number of permits that they can do. We went from 4 to 6 in a calendar period. This was kind of proposed just because we're looking to have more events, and so we want them to be able to do that more often. It's just kind of more aligned. It'd be kind of 2 every other month, so to speak, instead of the 4. And we're done. And so I know that this is a very, I guess, a sensitive topic, because it involves the safety of our citizen, but it also kind of, again, I started by saying it aligns with an item that council is really passionate about, by making sure that we have a vibrant, active city with, things that our citizens can enjoy and do. I will provide either the slide or a Word document for these changes so that council has an opportunity to kind of go through it. I welcome the feedback, and then we will circle back internally to discuss those council concerns. Yes, sir.
So looking at these proposed changes, I'm still concerned that they don't really address vendors at the proposed food truck park. There's things in there that talk about still needing to report daily to their commissary, moving their trucks
So,
daily.
to that point, most cities have their own food truck ordinance. We've already started pulling ordinances as it relates to that. And so if the city was to adopt a food truck park, or if the city was starting to allow for food truck parks, I would recommend that we have a separate food truck ordinance that's added into this that specifically addresses what we expect from food truck parks and what they're allowed to do, especially one that's going to have like their own commissary, overnight parking, and so that it would be tied into that. So it would be specific to food truck parks. These provisions specifically deal with mobile food trucks and special events. And so it's not really going to encompass what a food truck park looks at. And I probably should have kind of went into more detail with that or led with that. A lot of the concerns that you have, I feel like would probably be eased or addressed in a separate food truck ordinance.
I get that. What I'm seeing out there in social media is that the idea of a food truck park is being pilloried by food truck operators because of their history of dealing with our ordinances as they currently exist. And they anticipate that that would carry over into any food truck park. We need to make it clear that, items such as reporting to the commissary when we might in fact have a commissary on site, or moving their trucks daily, when that's not what we're envisioning happening at a food truck park. We need to explain how that will all operate so that we don't have this negative umbrella out there before we even get started on going forward with that.
Sheree, if I can, to answer your question, Councilmember Getz, currently right now, a food truck can park at their commissary as ordinance reads right now. So if the city has a food truck park, if that's the plan going forward with the downtown development, and the city has a commissary that's downtown close to the food, then the trucks don't have to move. They can remain there as long as you guys want them there, because the commissary is right there. So they'll be able to dump their gray water. And if you guys have refrigerators and freezers, hand washing sinks and a prep table, they can keep everything there. Then they don't have to buy stuff fresh daily every day. They can buy it a week ahead of time, just as long as they put it in there, right? Then we inspect the commissary passes, then everything's okay. Then they can remain there. And that's typically how food truck parks operate. So food trucks don't have to move from a food truck park if there's a commissary close by.
Councilman Turner.
One of my first questions is, I know we kind of spoke about the jurisdiction, but I didn't really see it defined. Are we talking about a mile radius, or when we say a jurisdiction, the city of Beaumont's jurisdiction?
Yeah, so the jurisdiction is defined by the health authority's jurisdiction. So that's defined in other places of the ordinance. So that definition, is already explained. So it would be within the city limits or within the city's EGJ, whatever area we provide, the health director to provide services to, that's his jurisdiction.
All right, well, the clarity I'm looking for is, I know we're talking about transporting and moving food. I think it'll be a little bit more understandable if we did like a mile radius, like a 30-mile radius or 20-mile radius or a 10-mile radius. Like, I just kind of want a little bit more clear, as far as jurisdiction, because I just want to be able to, someone has asked me, can you bring something for needling? I want to be able to clearly define.
In the proposed changes,
Yes, sir.
They can bring something outside of the jurisdiction, but they would have to provide supporting documents from the regulatory authority that inspects needling.
So is with Houston be considered too far? Would that be considered too far?
Well, no, that's when you have to provide us your transportation plan. That plan is
got you.
from your location to wherever you've been set up in Beaumont, what's your plan to be sure that that food maintains the right temperature in transport? That's your transportation plan. So you have to you submit those particular documents to us at the time you apply for the permit.
Okay, and my second question is, if a food truck has a commissary, are we still requiring them to provide these receipts if they have a
No,
commissary?
we just they need to provide us the inspection report from their commissary.
Okay, so
That's
they
what we
wouldn't have to
require
provide the
for-
food receipts, just
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we require for food trucks in Beaumont that has a commissary.
And my third question is, I noticed attorney said earlier that other cities do provide commercial food truck commissaries because they're trying to be more progressive in that area. And I know we might not have staff in place to answer this right now because I know Emily deals with our commissary at the Civic Center, but I'm just curious to know how often is that used?
I think whenever we have an event and they're bringing in food and it's being catered, like I said, like we host several events in our facilities and almost all of them serve food. So I just want to just go ahead and use the last big one that we did for the city. We did the State of the City. There was a lot of food, right? So they, would have brought in that food potentially the day before and stored it so that they could either cook on site or prep on site for that purpose. So whenever the facility is rented, they have access to use the commissary. That's part of the thing. So I would say that it's not something that we could probably do long term and allow for on an ongoing basis because it would reduce our ability to provide that to people who are renting it for large events. One of the things that we looked at and we were looking at what other cities were doing is that they do commit to that. So the commissary is a standalone space that allows for that. And I believe Mr. Coleman said that we do have one here, one or two here locally that allows for individuals to come in, supply their food, park their food trucks, dispose of their waste. They provide those type of services. Some cities are providing that for food truck parks until it becomes a business where other people kind of do that. There's a lot of mixed feelings and emotions that come with that because that puts the city into a more proprietary role. We're providing a private service, so to speak, as to providing a government or public service. So there are a lot of things that kind of would give me pause about that. But I just wanted to point that out, that it is something that some cities are doing. There are people who are doing it here. And so I think that as the need kind of came up, that more people would probably get into the business of providing private commissaries for the food trucks.
Yeah, overstood. I think it's beneficial to know that it's being done here because that kind of can eliminate the discussion of basically supplying your own. And the last thing that I just was concerned about was the, dumping and reporting back daily. That's what I just need clarity on. How has that relationship been as far as staff dealing with some of the food trucks? And I ain't trying to tell, but the College Street area, they be there every day.
Well, of course, you're gonna always have people that don't follow the rules, right?
Yes.
And when we find out, we catch them, then that's when we do something about it. But first, let me explain what a commissary is. All a commissary is a licensed kitchen, a licensed establishment. Most of your churches have licensed kitchens, correct? Now, of course, your churches are not cooking and serving food daily. So a food truck, for example, could have a relationship with a church to allow that church kitchen to be their commissary, right? You're just a place where you go, you keep your food, you dump your gray water, and you service your truck. That's all a commissary is, okay? So now to get to your question, in Beaumont, we got over 550 or 600 licensed food establishments, right? So, but we only have 2 that agree to be a commissary, right? So, and when you're a commissary, then you have to, there's a wastewater log that the food truck vendor and either the owner, the restaurant, or the manager have to sign. So we'll know that you went and you dumped your wastewater properly. Because we do have them dumped in the city drain. We catch it all the time. And then we do fine them. We might suspend or revoke their permit for violating the ordinance. Even when we find the ones who are bringing food from their home and selling it. And so we do that.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead. All right, sorry about that. So, I'm gonna add to what Mr. Coleman said, just to clarify it further. So we have, out of all the mobile units we have in the city of Beaumont, we have 2 commissaries that allowed for mobile units to store their food there. We have around 13 actual commissaries in Beaumont right now. And that's licensed food establishment that agreed to be commissaries. So as far as, the storage part of it, that's where the purchase daily and receipts come in at, because out of all the almost 60 mobile units we have, only two places that the mobile units currently have to store their food in Beaumont. So like Mr. Coleman was saying, it's not uncommon for us as inspectors to find out that the mobile unit, when they think we're not out on a Saturday, brought food from home. It's just our reality.
So Justin, do you think it's, with that being said, out of, 13, but only 2 allowed, do you think it's more of a demand to assist with a commissary based on that assessment?
Yes, but you also got to think about that the licensed food establishment, in the case of being a restaurant, they have their own supplies and food that's taking up the majority of their space and don't have the extra space for that mobile unit as well.
Yes, Councilman Neal.
So is there anything that we're doing that's more stringent than state guidelines?
No. No, not at all. Not at all. The state guidelines and the federal guidelines talks about you have to have a commissary. What we put in our ordinance is the commissary had to be within the city limits of Beaumont, so we can inspect the commissary, right? But with these proposed changes, that if you have a commissary in Nederland, then we will allow you to come into the city of Beaumont and participate in the event. You just need to provide us with the inspection from the commissary in Nederland. That's in the proposed changes. But we're not doing anything different outside of what the state is saying.
So is the biggest issue right now the commissary or the dumping location?
It's both. The biggest issue is it's not enough restaurants are willing to be commissaries. And so you have this place, you want to tell them about the place that's downtown?
It's KT Commissary, it's KT Commissary Kitchen there off of 4th Street. So this gentleman, he has a licensed food establishment outside of the city of Beaumont, but he understood the need for it, so he created one. So we have, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we have mobile units that use them mainly for storage, but they're also going to get their fresh waters, probably their wastewater, and they need to do any food prep. There's tables, refrigerators that the mobile units themselves provide the refrigerators, their own refrigerators that we can inspect at the commissary. And it's also the biggest holdup is the understanding what exactly a commissary is, because it's even as recently as, let's say yesterday, got a call about the fair. Do I have to go back to my commissary? The mobile units at the fair, they bring their own refrigerators and freezers that we inspect as well. So as far as somebody buying or making kebabs, we're inspecting that food whenever he gets it on tomorrow, because he don't have the food yet.
And they put the refrigerators inside for park somewhere?
They're around the mobile units. So the full park provides the electricity, they provide the water. Some of the bigger vendors, they bring their own reefer trucks. So a lot of these vendors that we're speaking of do this year round. So this is not new to them. They bring their own stuff.
And they have vacuum trucks that go and remove the gray water out of the fairgrounds?
No, there's grease traps. So their mobile units are tied into the water supply and the grease trap at Ford Park. Gotcha. So there's no need to move.
Yes.
Mayor, I just want to provide a little bit of information based on Mayor Pro Tem's question, Turner's question about the event center and using that as a commissary. I did ask specifically that question of Emily Wheeler. And again, I know we've accommodated some folks recently, but ask her the question on long-term, would that be an option? And she said it would not based on the current facilities because of the conflict with the other events. So we would need to build out a facility.
That was offered to the Taste Triangle because it was at the Civic Center. And so to allow outside vendors to be able to participate. So I think it would be offered if the event is held at that facility. And so I think that we are very, very accommodating. We work with all the food vendors so they'd be able to come in and participate. So.
Well, Mayor, I just want to thank staff, Mr. Coleman and Sheree, for this discussion because it brought to light some things that we desperately need in Beaumont, such as more commissaries. I think that's something we realized that would assist with a lot of the issues we have going on, even for an entrepreneur to literally not even own a business out here and just come out here and provide a commissary that kind of speaks to the need. And I think having these type of conversations is kind of help us get to what our problems are so we can come with better solutions, and just taking the time out to put changes together, just letting the community know from both perspectives. We hear you guys. I understand we do want things safe, and I'm totally okay with it, but I was a part of that situation with Taste of the Triangle, and I again compliment you for how you handled it. Because often when we deal with media, that's one side of the story being told. And just to learn that the accommodations were made to actually let them come inside and utilize ours, that's the side of the narrative that wasn't being told. That's why I'm very hesitant on how I deal and talk with media. You do that to us, I'm not going to interview with you. So it needs to be accountability both ways. So thank you.
Yes, Councilman Felshaw.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Turner. We as a council, it's obvious, and I know you too, we want to be friendly towards our mobile food trucks. And we don't want to burden them with unnecessary rules. But by the same token, we want to protect our citizens. And so we appreciate you helping us to find the guidelines and to make sure that we're protecting our citizens. Because I know that the sickest I've ever been in my life was one time I got food poisoning. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It's horrible. And so we appreciate everything that you and the staff have done.
Thank you, guys.
So next step would be, for me, would be to provide this draft to council so that council can provide feedback on that. And then for us to regroup internally, both with legal, the health department, and with water quality. Since this also involves them, they were not included in the initial discussion. But I feel like if this is something that council wants to move forward with seriously, then we do need to include those departments that have that touch this, and possibly even planning. And then if it's the desire of the council to bring it back, then I would ask for some time to do that. Keeping in mind that, again, a timeline for when y'all would provide that feedback, and then some time for us to kind of get all of those departments together to meet a couple of times to do that. So not a fast process, obviously, but I'm confident that if this is something that council wants to bring back, that this is something that we can bring back this summer.
Yes, ma'am. Just for clarity, so you get a clear understanding and a direction, I like to yield to the mayor and just ask if we can kind of put a timeline on, we as a council can give them legitimate feedback so they can bring it back to us, understanding, the festivals and summertime, like that's when we probably experience most of them. So, Mayor, I don't know what timeline you feel is fair, but.
So you're talking about us responding to the draft that she sends out? Is 2 weeks enough time for council people to review and make changes?
I'm okay with 2.
Okay. So we'll get that out this afternoon in 2 weeks. And then from that point, I guess, once we have and regroup, I'm confident that we can get this back beginning summer, so 1st of June.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
So we're ready, we're beyond the work sessions now, and we're moving on, Mr. Assistant City Manager. If we may have the reading of item number 11, please.
Yes, sir. Item number 11 is to consider requests for amendments to the tow trucks, tow companies, and tow truck operators ordinance, section 6.08.003 and 6.08.005. And the administration recommends approval of the ordinance.
Is there a motion for item number 11?
Move to approve the amendments.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 11. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's carried. At this point, we'll move into council member comments, and I will begin with Councilman Durio.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'm gonna start off with saying, happy birthday to my grandson Luke. He's 12 years old today, and he's spending it at Magic Mountain out there in Los Angeles, California, having a great time. Also, Lauren mentioned about the summer jobs that the city has available for teenagers. If y'all will go to the website and look at that. This weekend, I had the pleasure of doing a ribbon cutting for the community gardens water meter over there on Glenwood Street in Ward 4 off of 4th. They've been having a community garden there for a while, and they were having problems with watering it, and we were able to help them with the watering. And thanks to the mayor and some other folks, they were able to get a water meter out there, and so we did a ribbon cutting for the water meter. So that's a nice deal. Thank you, staff, for your presentations, and also the Blanchette Elementary School Student Council. It's great to see young folks come and participate. And also, if I could, maybe get an update on our youth council. I hadn't last term. They were having meetings and they were going to conferences and things like that. And we'll never get a chance, we can get an update on that. And also, Mr. Johnson over there on Madison Street, he was here I guess at the last meeting. And if we can get an update on if PD was able to help him or find out what's going on. You know, there's a lot of scams going on that attack our elderly folks and their money. So if we can get an update on that and see what's going on with that also. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Getz?
I want to offer my congratulations to Beaumont United for another incredible basketball season, as well as the Lamar men and women's team. The men made it to the Southland Conference finals, I believe, where they fell to McNeese, and the women's continuing to play. I don't know if I was Lamar men's coach, I'd be offering scholarships to the whole Beaumont United team as a whole and trying to keep that group together. I'd like to know if somebody can check on seeing how we're doing with ordering and getting turf installed for the Rogers Park Dog Park. My understanding is that's the only thing we're waiting on to open that facility. Also, the Beaumont Municipal Tennis Courts have a few courts that really need to be resurfaced, as well as some of the posts are not starting to rust, have rusted and are leaning. And when a tennis court post leans, it makes the net at the wrong height. Right now, some of those courts are not even really playable, especially for things like the Southland Conference tournament that'll be coming up. Those are going to need to be addressed pretty quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Turner?
Yes, sir. Mr. Boone, just, something in the future with staff, we're challenged with approving the budget, and if we can figure out ways until we really get the tax base to what we need it to be as far as property tax, sales tax, to make sure we really pay attention to some of the requests coming through. And because, we actually cut our budget this year, and I feel like we lost some pretty strong programs. So I think not only cut it from that aspect, but just make sure we kind of really pay attention to the requests from the departments as well, because it's a cause and effect. The second thing is, I know Councilman Samuel did tell me about the call he got about the light on Pine Burn Lucas, and I appreciate the gentleman coming today. It is a senior citizen facility right there, and that flashing light and them getting back across, even if they're just trying to go to the grocery store, that is pretty tough. I don't know the process, but I'm pretty sure there's a process. I don't know if we need to do a traffic study or what, but whatever we do need to do, I do support that as well, that we look into that. Also, just kind of backdooring off what Councilmember Durio said, Mr. Johnson's been up here twice. And I just like to see if we can do anything in our power to, just assist any senior that's going through something. It may seem like a small amount to us, but to some, but sometimes you never know what people may be going through. And for the gentleman to come this many times, I think he really needs some assistance. So if we can help him and give him some guidance what direction to go in to handle this problem, I appreciate that as well. And as Mayor stated, I emailed the mayor recently about doing something for BU, and I'm kind of glad that something is going on Wednesday. So as a council, if we can support it, I think it'll mean a lot to those young men just for us to simply be present. And lastly, I just hope soon for Lamar's women's basketball team, hopefully the upcoming meeting, that we can kind of show them some appreciation. I was out when we got back from Washington, and a young lady from the team came up to me and said, "Y'all did this for BU. Y'all did this for Alexis Morris. What about us? Y'all haven't brought us to the council." So I actually emailed the mayor and brought it to his attention. I just want to make sure we show love to all people doing great things in Beaumont, and if we can get them up here and celebrate them, I highly appreciate it. I think they deserve it, and they need to know that this city is behind them. So if I can get some support with that, I highly appreciate it. So next time she see me, she might not beat me up, right?
Thank you, Councilman Turner.
Again, congratulations to Beaumont United and Lamar University. Other than that, I'm good, Mayor.
Congratulations to Beaumont United. Go LU, go LU. And I'd also like to show appreciation for Cheryl, Ms. Ray. Thank you for making it easier to understand in the audit committee, and thank your staff for what you've done. The vendor said how much he appreciated the courtesy and help that your staff provided. So thanks to the Beaumont staff. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman.
Just like to say thank you to Mr. Coleman for working on this challenges with these food trucks. I know everybody on council gets several phone calls a year on them, so it seems like most of the time we only have one side. So appreciate you bringing the facts to the table and helping us work through this.
Madam.
Just a few things. The gentleman, Mr. Madison, was connected with a detective after the meeting, so he will be following up with that, so that council can kind of cross that off the list. Staff is doing a better job when individuals come up to making sure we connect them with individuals that can help. So that was addressed today, and they'll be following up. Lastly, just want to say thank you to my staff and the agencies that helped work on the presentation today, specifically BPD and the traffic department with Chapter 6, as well as the health department with Chapter 10 and all those other agencies or people who assisted as well, especially Chase in my office. Lastly, on your dais is a opinion recently that was released by the Supreme Court. I've summarized it and briefed it for you and talked about how that application applies to the city. Specifically, just briefly, this dealt with a citizen and a city manager, so not directly related to council. But the court did have some specific applications as it relates to personal and private Facebook pages. Basically, the Supreme Court said that your city attorney is a genius because she has been telling y'all from day one to keep separate personal and public Facebook pages. But The court just went into detail about how and when and what avenues a council person or what they identified as a public official would be allowed to limit the speech on their pages. In this case, Mr. Freed was operating his personal Facebook page, and he would occasionally post about things that were going on with the city in his capacity as a city manager, and a citizen would comment and make derogatory comments on his personal page about his personal beliefs in the city manager's application of some of these things. And with the court, essentially, the basis of the lawsuit, because the city manager, or Mr. Freed in this case, would remove or delete those comments. The full basis is that public page, or in this case, his Facebook page, was a public forum. The court said nope, because he had that personal page and he operated in his personal capacity. That wasn't a responsibility he had as a city manager, that he was entitled to do that. So just kind of break that out for you guys so you can kind of see and understand its application to both. I know we have some council people, persons that have both public and private pages, but they operate both simultaneously. So there's, pictures of grandkids and then city stuff on the page, which is fine, right? So the court just allowed for elected officials and for cities to kind of outline what that looks like, right? So someone, I'm just going to pick on the mayor. If the mayor's posting a selfie of his grandkids and just saying, but his
Do that.
at the baseball field, and he captions "It's a great day in Beaumont" at the softball fields, right? That's not in his official capacity as the mayor. It's just that's the thing. But if he also posts a selfie at an event and he's talking about city things and city logistics, and somebody maybe puts a criticism post underneath that one, that may be a public forum. But someone commenting on whether or not Buffalo needs a haircut, the mayor could remove that post immediately because that's about his personal and private life. I'm sorry, I just love Buffalo's name and he's adorable. So
Got long hair.
and he's adorable. But so those type of things wouldn't be relevant. And so the court really does establish a bright line rule, something that we hadn't had before. The city's pages are still public forums, and we're still required to operate those under the same restrictions that we do in council as a public forum, time, place, and manner, and those restrictions. Also, the court said just because you're a public official doesn't mean you're not allowed to, avail yourself to the same user rules that are allowed on those sites. So Facebook has standards, Twitter, Instagram, they all have standards in which you can prevent or limit people from posting your page. So just wanted to make you guys aware of that. That was brought to my attention by Councilman Durio and Councilman Getz, which kind of said, hey, does this apply? So I wanted to make that available to all of you. It's a very lengthy memo, which is why I wanted to mention it in my comments, because I know some of you don't read the memos that I send you. That's okay. That's okay. But I definitely wanted to point that out. I think you have a question for me, Councilman Turner.
So basically saying Mike Facebook page out of control.
I specifically picked on the mayor.
And Felshaw?
Bernie, since you brought this up, let me ask a question. You clarify it. I have a private public page that I use, and I keep city stuff off of that pretty much. Then I have a public city page, and that's all city. Okay. If I'm on my city Facebook page, if I post something and there's a comment that I don't like, I've never deleted them. I treat it as public document, and I freedom of speech. Okay, so I leave it there. But in your memo, I thought I read, if I'm saying something, my personal views, and I'm not representing the city, I can delete it.
On your personal page.
But not on the city public.
So your public page, if you're holding it out and you're operating in your public capacity, that is a public forum. And so those comments, so if you have a comment that is that violates that site's user policies. For example, I think Facebook says that you can't use profanity, nudity, or bullying language, right? So somebody gets on there and they call you some bad words and some bad names, you can report it.
Bald-headed white guy.
I didn't say that.
Y'all make my job so easy. So let's just say they threw in some like racial inappropriate slurs just for the fun of it. You can report that to Facebook. You don't have to remove it, but you can report it to Facebook, and Facebook will decide whether or not it violates their community standards, and you're absolved from that. On your personal page, if someone gets on and says that they thinks your daughter's haircut is ugly, you can remove that post because it's your personal page. Also, your personal page doesn't have to be public. It can be private. And so you can remove and delete them. And you can do that because you have a public page that allows a second forum for them to communicate and contact with you. So what they said is that if you have a private page, blocking them becomes a little harder. But if you have a private and public page, in this case, the city manager had his personal page where he was sharing information to, but there was still a city page, right? So they could contact and communicate with him through that page. So as long as you're not limiting a citizen's ability to communicate with you, you're fine. So if you don't want them on your private page, that's your right. But you leave your public page open and public for them to connect with you, but you don't have to have them on your private
So
page.
the bottom line is on my public political Facebook page, where I deal with all the city things, just don't delete anything. Should be the rule of thumb, unless it's offensive and violates the Facebook rules.
Yeah, then you would report it. You wouldn't delete it. You would report it.
Just report it, but basically you don't delete.
No. You would report it. Facebook will decide to remove it. Keeps a record of that kind of thing. So you wouldn't be violating any of that in that public forum situation. But you also can't block anyone from your public page, but you can from your private page. It does, when they look at speeches and posts, the court was very specific that they're going to look at each individual one to determine what your speech was at that time. So if you're operating a dual page, which is something that you use for both personal and public, they're going to look at the comment in the post to make sure what your speech was and then what that comment was, right? Because the reality is that somebody could come up to the podium in this meeting and say that we all suck. We all don't look good today. And we would say, thank you so much for your comments. And the mayor would call for the next person, right? As long as they didn't use any profanity, any racial epithets, or anything like that, they're entitled to have an opinion about Chris Boone's tie. So, that's the thing. You can't threaten. You can't, so you can't do those things. You can't incite a riot or do those things, but you can come up and just kind of express an opinion. You can say, I don't like that tie. I don't like when she wears green suits. You can say those things. Those things are a freedom of speech. But what you can't say is that, I'm going to kill the mayor, right? You can't make a threat. You can't do those things. So the Supreme Court has always said that the government entities has an ability to regulate time, place, and manner as it relates to speech. We do that every day. We have public comment at the beginning of the meeting. We limit it to 3 minutes, and we limit it to items related to city business and that are posted on the agenda, right? So we get a wide variety of people that come in and speak to us, and that's kind of how we, regulate their speech. They're still entitled to say those things, but they can't, again, come in and use profanity. That's one of our council rules. We require them to address us by councilman or ward or mayor, city attorney, city manager, so they can't call us by name or by, in Bart's case, they would say public works director as opposed to, calling by his first name. So we do have those requirements in place, and those are kind of in line with the restrictions that are available to cities. But that's the same thing would apply online as well. Welcome.
Yes, very thorough. And
Yeah.
Councilman Samuel, did you have more to add?
No, I'm just going to use TikTok.
And so in closing, before Bart goes his comments, I would like to say congratulations to my alma mater, specifically the girls basketball team. As a former basketball mom, I was so proud of those girls and all they did. And then, of course, congratulations to BU.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak briefly about the crosswalk at Lucas and Pine Bur. So as y'all are aware, there was recently a auto pedestrian fatality at that intersection. There is a crosswalk present at the intersection. It is a signalized crosswalk, so it has traffic signal heads. They're normally blinking yellow. However, when a pedestrian goes and activates the button at that intersection, then the light will cycle to solid yellow for a period of time, and then it will cycle to red, just like a normal traffic signal intersection will. There are pedestrian heads on either side of that crosswalk that give indications to the pedestrians when it's safe to walk across the street. And then you have a amount of time to cross the street that's the same as if you were crossing at a regular traffic signalized intersection. So that's in place currently. We did go and evaluate that intersection. We went ahead and replaced the signal heads to make sure that the lights were as bright as possible. We got parks to trim the trees as the branches were in spring, so the branches had grown, and the right-hand signal head was obstructed if you were in the right-hand lane. You could still see the other one, but you couldn't see the right-hand one. We also went ahead and updated the signal heads and put the yellow surrounding border around them, which is the new TxDOT standard. And then finally, we looked at the pedestrian heads, and one of them had a countdown timer on it and the other one did not. So we went ahead and updated the pedestrian head to give a countdown timer. That way you know exactly how long you have to get across the street. We're going to initiate a traffic study and evaluate this area. There have been a number of incidents over the years. In the meantime, we went ahead and we went back all the way to 2016 and evaluated the auto pedestrian incidents that have occurred at Pine Bur since that time. So there have been 6 auto pedestrian incidents that have occurred from 2016 until 2024. Of those, there have been 2 fatalities over those 6. There was 1 in 2016, 1 in 2020, 2 in 22, and 2 in 24. One of the ones in 22, the car left the roadway, struck a pedestrian that was on the sidewalk. So they weren't in the road at all. In the other 5, in no case were any of the pedestrians using the crosswalk. So they were either not anywhere near the crosswalk. One of them, they were north of Pine Bur, but they might have been close to it, but in no case were they actually using the crosswalk that's present at that intersection. So if we did fully put a signal at Pine Bur and Lucas, the crosswalk would remain the same. It would still activate the same way. The only difference would be that traffic would be stopped on Lucas for cars coming off of Pine Bur, but it wouldn't change in any way the method of crossing Lucas for people getting from the apartment complex to the convenience store. So the big problem as I see this is we really need to encourage people to use the crosswalk so that traffic would be stopped with a red light and they go across in the crosswalk rather than just at a location along that street.
Thank you. Mr. Assistant City Manager Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo what was said earlier about the Finance Department. I want to commend Ms. Ray and her team for the city's 2023 audit. Again, we got a clean opinion on that audit, and that's very good financial news for the city. I want to commend and congratulate Ms. Ray for all of her hard work. I actually was a finance or a CFO at another city, so I do know all of the hard work that's involved in preparing an audit for the city, and a lot of the work, actually most of the work, is behind the scenes. We don't ever see it besides the finance folks, and they did an excellent job. They actually completed it sooner than expected. In our finance world, we try to complete city audits before the end of March. Today is March 19th, so they met that benchmark. This audit was completed sooner than last year. It was late April when we brought the audit to City Council last year. So with being short-staffed and with the change that occurred in the Finance Department, I again commend Ms. Ray and her team on a successful audit. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for your congratulations, but I do still have a couple of my staff members here, and they're the ones who really deserve a lot of the credit for what happened, and we're just glad it's over. So on to budget, stay tuned.
Assistant City Manager Boone.
Yes, sir. So Lauren mentioned this earlier, registration is open for our 3-on-3 basketball tournament. I'd also like to mention that our spring basketball league teams, I think, are either forming or have formed. And so that play is going to start here in the next couple weeks. So we're excited about that. I would like to just again thank Bo Hanson, Boyd Meyer, our deputy building official and building official for their work on the getting all those codes across the finish line, along with our city attorney and her staff for helping out with that process. And finally, I would like to express my appreciation for Kenneth Coleman, his staff, as well as the city attorney for their work on trying to continue the conversation on the food truck and the food handling issue. I know it's difficult to try to balance quality of life issues and entertainment with public safety. So it's a difficult task. So I just appreciate them.
Thank you. And it is an exciting time, and certainly with our basketball teams doing as well, and the men having a winning season was outstanding. And the women, we have reached out to them about doing something. Their season's not over. So they're just getting to the tournament, not the NCAA tournament, but nevertheless, that which is an awesome thing. And I'm grateful for all the activities. I mean, we've got the fair starting Thursday night. We have the Energy Museum Gala Thursday night. We've got the 100 Black Women event Saturday night, along with LeGrand Ball. We've got an Easter egg hunt by the city on Saturday at Magnolia Park. All that information is posted. And clearly, our finance department and health department have done an incredible job. And I know as people that serve on council, to be clear, I'm very festival friendly. I understand when things get said on social media or oftentimes the media, one side of the story is said and the other side's not. And that can be frustrating because we're not getting, but we do a good job of putting out that information. It's just that it's not always received. But I'm grateful for that, and certainly grateful for all our local restaurants that pay property tax and sales tax. And appreciate them because, as we know, that from our water and sewer bills and property tax and sales tax is where we get our revenue in order to operate the city. So that is awesome. And with that, I thank y'all all for being here, and the meeting is adjourned.
All right, boss.